Tudor is a brand synonymous with most watch circles on the internet. It's probably the brand I see recommended most as a first foray into luxury watches. People who are trying to get into their first luxury watch, oftentimes I see people recommend Tudor. And for very good reason. Of course, it's owned by Rolex, probably the biggest watch brand in the world. And for Tudor, I think you can get a really, really nice watch without having to spend an exorbitant amount of money. You're getting just a great brand with a lot of history and backed by the biggest name in watches. And probably the most iconic Tudor watch so far has been the Blackbay. And I happen to own a Blackbay 58 and also the Blackbay METAS 41. These are both great watches, but maybe you've been wanting to get a Tudor. We're gonna compare these two watches and see which one might be right for you. I'm Matt and welcome to Time.baum. So of course we are talking about Tudor today, and on my wrist is my Tudor Blackbay 41, the METAS version with the burgundy bezel. I love this watch, and that's part of the reason why I'm making this video, because I think a lot of people like Tudor out there. Like I said before, it is a really popular brand, and it's often advertised as the best watch to buy if you're just getting into luxury watches, or if you've been in for a while. It's just highly rated. Maybe some would even say a little too highly rated. I don't personally think it's overrated at all. I think it's probably rated at this point. Most people know about Tudor if you're into watches at all. So I think the brand has well deserved of all the accolades it gets from people on the internet and watch enthusiasts. So let's break down the Tudor Blackbay 38 versus the METAS Blackbay. So let's talk about movement first. Of course, I am a movement guy. I really do appreciate movements and the different intricacies, if I can even pronounce that right, complications, all that. These are both using very similar movements here. They're both three-handers, no date, and they do have seconds, of course, but no date, no day of week or anything else, no chronographs, nothing crazy like that. They're very just simple three-hand time-only watches. Which, is going to be a benefit for some. Personally, I like it because it's very easy to set. I mean, you just go right to your time. You don't have to worry about a date. So, for me personally, I think it's nice to have some of both in your collection, some with a date, some without, and this is a perfect watch without a date. So the movements really are very similar in that aspect, no extra complications. They're actually really using like the same materials. The movement in the Blackbay 58 is just a little bit smaller, but with that being said, it still has the same 70-hour power reserve. So some brands, they make a smaller movement for a smaller watch, smaller case, and you are going to lose some of that power reserve. This is not the case with Tudor. Both of these watches have that full 70-hour power reserve, which is really nice. That's a very solid number, something I'd like to see. Some of the ETA and Solita based movements, I love to see them get up to that 70-hour power reserve. It really is nice to just leave your watch sit for a couple of days, come back to it, and it's still running. Very nice. Of course, when it comes to these movements, they're both Kinesi movements, in-house movements, right? You'll hear that term a lot, in-house movement. There's a lot of debate on whether these are actually in-house or not. Personally, I think they kind of are. So Kinesi is a movement manufacturer. They are owned by Tudor, okay? So they make the movements for Tudor. Tudor goes to them, they say, this is what I want the movement to look like, this is how I want it to function, and they build it for them to their exact specs. So maybe in name only, they are not in-house technically, maybe more of in-group, but in reality, it's the same as if Tudor was making them, right? They're owned by Tudor. They have full control over the entire process. Of course, we're not talking about the same level of sort of verticality that like Rolex has, right? Rolex manufactures themselves every single part of the movement and the case and everything, including gold, all that. So that's very unique to Rolex. Other brands don't even do that. So I would still call it an in-house movement. You're getting it with both of these watches. Of course, like I said, using the same components. So what are the differences? Well, size is one, but that's going to more matter with the size of the case, not really so much the movement. What the difference you're really getting here is going to be in the certification. So the Blackbay 58 has a chronometer certification, which is kind of the gold standard for watch movements. This is going to mean that the Blackbay 58 is tested and made sure to be running between -6 and +4 seconds a day. So that's a decent range there, and you're staying in between that, and it's very accurate, right? This is only given out to watches that are able to stay that through different positions. So it's a very good certification to have. The Blackbay 41, the METAS one, of course called METAS for the master chronometer, and this is a sort of new standard being used on some watches, most notably Omega, and of course now it is being brought into Tudor. So what this does is it actually has to case up the watch. So with chronometer, they just kind of send the movements out, get them certified. This, they have to put it inside the watch for testing. So the only difference there is, maybe there could be some slight differences with how the movement reacts if it's not in the case. So you're pretty much getting the watch tested as it's being sent to you. Also, it has to be anti-magnetic to 15,000 Gauss, which people always say like MRI machines. I mean, in reality, you're not taking your watch into an MRI. They're not going to let you do that. But it's nice just around anything weird. I mean, speakers have magnets. Your phones have magnets. There's a lot of different magnetic fields all around us. There's radio waves all around us. So having that little bit of extra protection against that is pretty nice. And I have heard some stories of people using Sellita movements and getting them magnetized. So you're really not going to have this problem here, which is really great. Of course, these movements are even more accurate than the chronometer. They are from 0 to +5 seconds a day. Of course, meaning that you're only ever going to be early somewhere, not late, which, of course, if you want to be super accurate, you're going to use your phone, not a watch, if you want to be the most pinpoint accurate as possible. But either way, you know that that movement is going to be the most accurate when it comes to certifications that it can get beyond some internal testings like Rolex does or something like that. So the METAS is going to be pretty much top of the line when it comes to that, which is great to have, but how much does it really account for? And I think it's just going to be something you have to ask yourself. I mean, another thing is these are like basically the same movements. So does that mean that the Blackbay 58's movements could pass the METAS testing? Probably. It probably could. Now, when they send the movements off, I'm sure not every movement ends up passing the METAS certification. So there are going to be some that don't make it, meaning that maybe not every Tudor Blackbay movement would pass the METAS, but you better believe it would be close to passing it. So for arguably less money, if you don't care about the actual writing on the dial master chronometer or the certification paper, you're still getting a really solid movement with the 58. So personally for me, I don't think that's enough of a reason to choose one over the other in and of itself. All right, so movement out of the way, let's talk about case. Both of these are very similar cases in look. Of course, these do harken back to the old Submariners from the 50s. If you compare those two, they look very similar, especially that Tudor uses a lot of gilded accents on the indices for these watches. Of course, the blue Blackbay 58 that I have does not use the gilded, but the burgundy bezel one does. And that is another thing about these Blackbays. There are several color options for each. So you can go with the blue, you can go with the black, or if you're going for the METAS 41 version, you can go with the burgundy bezeled, or you can go with the full monochrome, sort of black and white style one. So probably a color that you can find you like there. Anyway, back to the case. Like I said, similar case shape. If you hold them up side by side, they look very similar. Of course, the 58 is going to be a 39 millimeter watch, and the METAS is going to be that 41 millimeter. So in terms of size, that's going to come down as personal preference, what you like wearing on your wrist. I have a 7-inch wrist, and I can wear both. The 41 is not too big. The lug-to-lug on these is pretty conservative, I think. So I think, even if you have a smaller wrist, 6.5, 6 3/4, you can definitely wear the 41. I don't think it's going to look too big. For me though, I will say I think at times, depending on the strap, and it really is strap dependent, and I did buy my Blackbay 58 to be more of a strap watch. I don't even own the bracelet for it. Sometimes it does look a little small on my 7-inch wrist with certain straps. So it's kind of strap dependent. I think it looks great on NATOs, but some straps look a little tiny for me. But again, that is going to be personal preference. I definitely recommend trying these on if you can, or if you tried on similar size watches, you can kind of figure out from there. In terms of bezel, I mean, they really feel exactly the same to me. Tudor makes an amazing bezel. The Action 60-click bezel, it just turns and is perfectly buttery smooth, a nice clicking sound. No complaints there. One other difference on case is going to be the height difference. So the 58 is going to be 11.9 millimeters thick, which is nice and small, very small. It's going to slip right under cuffs, no problem. And the METAS 41 is going to be that 13.6, so quite a bit chunkier than the 58. And this is something people bring up a lot. It does have the slab style sides on it, so you do see that thickness when it's on your wrist. Personally, for me, I don't feel like it's too big. I feel like that 13.5, 13.6 size is perfectly fine for a watch that's 41 millimeters. It doesn't bother me at all. So that's something you're gonna have to decide. I don't think it feels too heavy. I really don't. It feels, honestly, it feels quite a bit smaller than some 42 millimeter watches that I've tried before. So I wouldn't get too worried about that personally. The only other difference I can really think of is going to be the crown. The crown on the 41 is just a little bit better. It's a little beefier, a little more knurled. It's easier to move. Not to say that the one on the 38 is bad, but I think if I had to choose one, I would give it to the 41. It's just a little bit easier. Also, the space between the lugs, so if you are going to use straps, on the Blackbay 58 is a 20 millimeter, and on the 41 is a 21 millimeter. So a lot of strap companies do not make 21 millimeters, so if you do want to put this on straps, you're going to have to keep that in mind for sure. So when it comes to options of these, you're going to have a lot of strap options to buy it on. Now, pretty much I'm going to usually recommend buying on the bracelet because straps can usually be had aftermarket or just cheaper in general. Usually if you buy the bracelets, especially if you go back to the OEM, to Tudor, they're going to be very expensive. That being said, I did buy the 41 on the 5-link Jubilee style bracelet. I love it. The bracelet is absolutely amazing. The finishing is very nice on, and it is very, very comfortable. So I definitely recommend that bracelet for sure. And on the 58, I purchased it on the blue leather strap, which is fine. I do find the buckle on it is a little hard to close. I mean, it looks nice. It feels like good quality, but it's a little hard to close. And I really haven't worn it much on the OEM leather. I've been using mostly rubber, sailcloth, and NATO straps, especially NATO straps on it. So I can't really talk too much about the bracelet there, except for you can get that same 3-link bracelet on either watch. The only thing you can't get on the 58 is going to be that Jubilee. It's just not available at this time. So just keep that in mind. But I think you can't go wrong either way. Again, I would recommend buying on the bracelet. Of course, now coming down to price, Blackbay 58 new on the bracelet is going to be $4,000, and the Blackbay 41 METAS is going to be $4,550 on the 5-link bracelet. And then for some other options, it's going to get a little cheaper from there, but that's going to be the most expensive. Of course, if you want to go secondary market, there are plenty of these available online. I did buy my 58 really cheap for only $2,300 off of the eBay verified. And honestly, great deal to be had there. Like I said, that's almost half off. So you can find good deals out there if you're willing to look around. But I think that's going to cover it on these two Tudor watches. I mean, I have both in my collection. I think they're both great watches. And it's going to come down to mostly personal preference. I don't think you can go wrong either way. But if I'm going to pick one as my favorite, it's going to be this one right here, the 41 METAS. I do think for that extra $500, being able to get the 5-link bracelet, which I just think is really comfortable. I mean, really nice. I love the 5-link. Huge fan of it. And getting the extra METAS, I think it's worth it for an extra $550. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Which of these watches would you be picking? Or do you already have one of these in your collection? Or do you have both? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please like, comment, and subscribe. And follow me on Instagram for photos of watches. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.